Many people will have their pay decreased this year and into the future. And it's all about shrinking the size of the government, reducing government spending. Now, this is going to impact retention. There's going to be a higher turnover rate. Why is this happening and how can it impact you? Let's get into it. First, we have the special salary rate, SSR, that's being targeted. Over 10,000 federal workers currently receive SSR. It is a boost to their base salary, between 10 to 30% pay increase. This is critical when it comes to attracting and retaining talent. If the agencies didn't have a problem getting the right people in the right position, they wouldn't use it. Some of the reasons to use SSR include recruitment difficulties, retention issues, hardship or high cost locations, shortage occupations, and emergency hiring needs. But not every agency chooses to use it, and the federal agencies that do use it, they only use it for certain positions. So right now, currently, look at the medical positions at the Department of Defense, they're using it. HHS is using it. Department of Justice is using it. The VA, the Veteran Affairs, they're using it. First, they only use it for their IT population. Certain IT professionals in the VA, they have SSR. This is to actually keep the talent. But in 2023, the VA gave nearly thousands of their human resource employees a 15% pay bump. This is because the year before that, there was a 20% vacancy rate. And they needed to close that gap. They also had to prepare for something else, something big. It was the PACT Act. Because of the PACT Act, they were going to do a lot more hiring. This is one of the reasons why the VA surged. The PACT Act meant that the VA had to hire thousands of new staff, doctors, nurses, and claim processors. But to hire all of these additional people, they needed a solid HR team. This is why they allowed SSR to cover positions in the 0201 series and the 0203 series. So you're looking at your HR professionals and your HR assistants. They had SSR. There was also a program that was released called HR Star, and that essentially trained up to 100 HR professionals each month. But earlier this week, VA leadership sent out a memo saying they're canceling that 15% pay raise. The VA Assistant Secretary for HR basically stated they conducted a review and SSR and other incentives are no longer needed to keep HR staff. Their pay will be decreased officially on October 4th, 2025. This means to me, if said another way, is competitive salary, competitive pay is no longer required to retain quality workers. That's what it means. And what does a 15% decrease even look like? So let's say you're earning $70,000 a year. A 15% increase is over $10,000. That is a significant amount for a middle-class family. But the good news is current employees won't see their paychecks shrink right away. This is because there are current OPM rules that guarantee pay retention. But what you will see is in the future, you'll have two HR professionals in the same grade, in the same step, but they're going to be paid different amounts. A former official warned that this could spark legal issues over equal pay for equal work. Also with the VA, they need to hire at least 1,000 HR professionals just to keep up with the turnover. And right now, they're not allowed to hire. Now, it's not just the VA that's reducing pay for some of their workers. Look over at the Bureau of Prisons. They decreased their pay by 25%. That's even greater than what the VA is doing. And the way that BOP did it is they removed the retention incentives. And the reason why is they said that they have budget concerns. They're not able to continue paying. Now, what BOP has done in light of this recent news is they're doing hiring fairs everywhere. If you're signed up to the free newsletter down below, you would see each and every week what is on there. There's a hiring event, a physical hiring event. There's multiple throughout the country. You can walk in there, show your ID. Chances are they're going to try to recruit you. They need correctional officers. The problem is a lot of people, they don't want to do that type of work. And then you have the IRS. They eliminated the 3 R's: recruitment, relocation, and retention incentives. But the employees that are already receiving the incentives, they're going to continue to get them. Now, we all know IRS was always a big target. You shouldn't have expected any incentives from that agency, not this year. There's a high likelihood you could be out of a job if you currently work for the IRS with all of their plans to reduce the size of that agency. And then we had a lot of other agencies. If you were paying attention in 2024, last year, there were a lot of agencies that were exploring the use of introducing SSR, the special salary rate, because there's positions all throughout the government, different agencies that are hard to retain. Let's say you can recruit somebody in. Somebody comes through the door because they're looking for a job. After a few months, after the first year, they're leaving. They don't want to do that type of work for a lot of different reasons. It could be monotonous, it could be low pay, it could be the leadership, whatever the reason is, they're having difficulties with the retention aspect. All of those plans from last year about SSR, they're all off the table now. Then there was a rule that would have expanded overtime for salary workers making under $58,000 a year, but that was struck down by the courts. It would have raised the salary threshold this year, but it never happened. Then we saw new rules this year that when it comes to overtime, you can never, no matter how many hours you work, you can never earn more than a GS 15 Step 10. Now, this is in a pay period, but it's also in a calendar year or a fiscal year. So if that pay goes to that limit, to the cap of a GS 15 Step 10, all the additional hours, it's not going to result in pay. Now, GS 15 Step 10, that's a pretty high rate. That's $195,000, $196,000 a year. But for some jobs where they're trying to work, close to 80 hours a week, then at a certain point, you could find yourself working for no money. So as this is unfolding, you can see that it's really not just the federal jobs that are under attack. It's not just the benefits, but really it's the pay as well. And it's a concentrated, coordinated effort to reduce the federal workforce, either by force or by making it so undesirable that people want to escape and leave the federal workforce. And really, what the end goal is, the end state seems to be that perhaps towards the end of this year, maybe the end of next year, let's say 2026, they want to augment the federal workforce with the private sector. So it's almost like a triangle, if you will. They want to keep a small sliver of the federal workforce, but the other two parts, one would be private sector, and then the other one would be AI, artificial intelligence. So that's how it would look like, and it would result in hundreds of thousands of federal jobs being lost. Okay, now let's shift and look at the VA's contract cancellations. The VA has an astounding amount of contracts. It's something like 90,000 contracts, everything from medical services to IT contracts. Well, recently, over 500 contracts were cut, and it represented a significant savings. So this is supposed to be like duplicative functions, non-mission essential type tasks. Those contracts, they were cut. But how were they cut? Well, it was with an AI tool built by Doge. This isn't the only tool that Doge has built or modified. The word is they've built quite a few AI tools. There was a big one called AutoRIF that was used to identify individuals to target during the widespread layoffs that haven't really happened yet. We're still waiting for those rifts to go through. A senator from Connecticut called this AI-driven approach a wholesale slashing of contracts. The problem is this AI tool was supposed to identify wasteful contracts, but an investigation found out that it was error-prone. There was a lot of errors in there, and it lacked oversight. Allegedly, it was like feeding contract data into a machine, letting it spit out cancellations based on keywords and calling it a day. There were quite a few companies affected by this, but there's one company in particular that helps the VA when it comes to modernizing their electric health record system, their EHR system, which is a pretty big deal. It's how the VA tracks veterans' medical records. But it's been dealing with major issues since 2020. So was this really a wasteful contract? Was it double checked? Did someone in Doge actually look at it 2 or 3 times? Maybe they did. Maybe they'll say, yeah, we looked at it. But you have to understand that Doge's understanding of that agency is somewhat limited because they just got there a couple of months ago. They're relying on other federal employees to kind of fill in the blanks because they don't really have an actual understanding based on history on where that agency is at. They're relying on second and third hand reports. Even a Doge engineer who built the tool admitted mistakes were made. Oh, and he even got fired for saying that there was less waste in the government than he expected. You can't say things like that because it goes against the narrative. The narrative that has been told to the public, millions of dollars were invested to pitch this narrative of the government being the most disorganized and wasteful organization that we have in this country. So anything counter to that narrative, well, pack your bags, you got to go. The VA is insisting that these cuts, they will not impact veterans. They will not impact the services that veterans rely upon. But that's the political correct thing to say at this moment. We won't know the true effects until much later. What we do know is leaders at the VA, they're still planning on cutting 83,000 jobs from that agency. Now, that's paused right now. The rifts are paused. So we're still waiting to see what the courts are going to say, what the Supreme Court has to say about the injunction that's keeping everything frozen at this period of time. But we do know the hiring freeze is still happening. We do know that attrition is still happening. So it's not just the VA, though. I don't want to just hyper focus on the VA and just say it's the VA is the one that's messing up. Take another agency, for example. Have you heard of NASA? NASA is dealing with some serious cuts. Thousands of people are going to be getting layoff notices, and there's a lot of mixed feelings about that. And then we recently had a parade where they were using the parade in Washington, D.C. as justification to work from home, to telework. So if there's inclement weather, if there's a birthday or a military parade going on, then you can work from home. Make that make sense. If you want to know more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.